For my hackle for this fly, all this long flowing thing that you see there coming off the back of that fly is peacock eye. What I did, and this has to be wet in order to use it. So what I did is before everybody came over here, I cut an eye off. I'm going to tie it in by the tip. And when it's wet, it doesn't want to behave very good. So now I'll wrap this forward maybe halfway from the end of the body to the front of the hook shank, or to the eye of the hook, to give me a gauge as to where I'm going to stop this. Now simply I'll pull it straight up and I'm going to fold this. Basically I'm going to try to get all the fibers on one side as I start to wrap it. And we'll wrap 3 or 4 wraps on here until I run out of fibers. Now when you tie in by the tip, any feather that you tie in by the tip has a tendency to want to twist on you. If you tie woolly buggers, that hackle wants to twist and wants to twist. So what I do to combat that is, you see my left forefinger in here, and I let go of it and just hold my wraps with that left finger and let the bottom part of the stem spin around to where it's square again, so that my next wrap I can come right over the top, let go of it, and that'll snap around and come around the last time. I'll stop it right there and simply tie it off. About 4 or 5 wraps to hold that heavy stem. Now it looks kind of like a big old mess here, so we'll come in here and simply pick it out. And that's going to be our wing. All right, now I'm going to cut this off. Hopefully we don't cut nothing else. All right, there we go. Now, what I'm going to do at this point is I might wrap back over this just a couple wraps to make sure that that's flowing backwards. And then we're going to wrap 2 more hackles, and we'll wrap them in a different plane, and I'll use a different color just to kind of show you what we're doing here. If you buy a saddle, you can come up here and pull one off of this side and one off of this side, and they should marry up the way that you want them. All right, again, I'm putting these feathers belly to belly, or concave to concave. I don't want them to splay out. I'm not putting them front to front, I'm putting them belly to belly. All right, I don't want this to be as long as my purple feathers, so we'll just measure it. Probably stop about 3/4 of an inch from the end of the tail. Find that spot, come in here and clip them. What I've done is I've come down here and I've trimmed this feather right along the rachis of the feather, right along the stem. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these in again on the sides. At 130 and 1030, and tent back over the back of the fly. And I want these to be in at a different plane than the rear feathers, so I'll have them at a little bit higher plane than those rear feathers are tied in. Okay? Can everybody see that? All right, and then if you look, there they are over the top. Okay, we're just about done. So what I'm going to do is I'll advance my thread just a little bit. Now if I wanted to weight this fly, I could have put a bead on here before we started, and this is where I would put the bead. I would make sure the bead was attached at this point, and then tie my top and my throat in front of the bead. That'll hide the bead a little bit if you don't want as much flash. You could always put it on in front of the throat and the wing, but I like my beads hidden behind the behind whatever I've got. For the wing of this fly, we'll use a contrasting color, so let's just use regular green peacock. And I'll use about 20 fibers, and I prefer to use peacock off the stem. The reason I do, the peacock that you buy in bags has a tendency to be busted up. A lot of it is unusable. I don't want all of these to be the same length, and they're not. Can you see that? Okay. But you notice I don't have any busted tips in there. Those are all nice full tips. And there's kind of a little natural curve. If you hold them up, there's a little natural curve. And I want that to curve right over the top of the fly. And I don't want it to be quite as long as the orange feathers, maybe just a hair shorter. And I will tie that in right at the front. Soft loop, pull straight down, about 3 wraps to hold it. Now, I want to make sure that it's covering approximately half of my hook shank, and that appears that I got half of it covered there. I don't over here, so I can come in with my thumb and kind of work it to where I get some of these fibers coming down on the opposite side of the hook, and I've still got my peacock wing in place. After I've done that, I might take a couple more wraps just to make sure that it's secure. Come in there and trim it off. Now, for the throat, I could use a number of things, but we'll use the white peacock for the throat. For my throat, I want it to be shorter than the bend of the hook. In other words, from the throat to somewhere between the point and the bend of the hook. So we'll do the same thing. We'll probably use about 10 fibers off of this. And again, I can cut them from both sides. This is my throat, and I'm just going to measure for length and simply come in here, soft loop again, tie it in. And cut it off. One more thing and we'll be done here, and that's the eye. And for the eye, I'm going to use 2 eye feathers off of a bird that's called a jungle cock. And I'm going to tie these in directly on the side of the fly. And I don't need to trim these. One thing you learn as you start tying with a bunch of different materials is how the stems are, how the stems lay. And jungle cock is ideal because the stems are virtually flat. All right, we'll tie one in on the other side. Again, I want it to be right on the shank of the hook. Soft loop, pull it down. That's pretty good. Come in here and trim that all off. And form our head. I'll whip finish. And again, I've heard a number of people today say, you notice I didn't cut. I sliced my thread after the whip finish. All right, now the head, the eye of the hook here is kind of boogered up with some materials. So I'll use this cauterizer, maybe. There we go. And very carefully come in here and clean that eye up, because that cauterizer will burn your thread. But that's simply, it's called, the style is called Squimpish flies. David has a website, www.squimpishflies.com. If you'd like to go see a true master at making these, I would encourage you to go look at his flies, because he's very, very good at it.